One of the most common things I hear why runners stop running is because of knee pain. And I'm constantly asked, Jordan, does running cause knee pain? And the answer is no. Running does not cause knee pain. Running with improper form and poor biomechanics is what contributes to knee pain as a distance runner. In this video, I'm going to share with you the main causes of why you might be having knee pain as a runner, and also what you can start to do about it to make sure that you can continue to run longer, stronger, and healthier without the constant knee pain. When talking about knee pain and what actually contributes to it, I want you to get a really good visualization of what the many causes are. So let me get changed real quick. All right, can't think of a better visual than this. Let's start to take a look at what causes, contributes to the knee pain and how you can start to overcome it right now. So the knee, again, start at the knee cap, the patella here. You have all these different muscle groups that attach to it and go over. Main things that people start to experience when they have runner's knee is pain primarily below the kneecap here at that tibial tuberosity from this patellar tendon pulling, or from people who get stress on the inside border here at the MCL or medial meniscus or the sartorius and other structures that attach into that portion there. So what happens, the main contributors is two things primarily. One is tight muscles and stress from overstriding or collapsing of the knee inward from dysfunction of the hip or foot and weakness of those outside hip stabilizers. So if you're running and you're overstriding, your quad has to contract to stabilize the knee. So over time, the quad continues to contract and the quads get tighter and tighter and tighter. And what happens is it starts to pull on the tendons that go over the kneecap and insert in that area. So instead of having nice loose quads, that pulling is causing a pulling on the bone, and people start to get irritation over time on that lower portion of the patella. So one of the main things you can do is start to break up and loosen your tight quads and also fix your running form so you don't have that constant contraction of the quad muscle. The next part is if your knee is collapsing inward repetitively over time, either from dysfunction of the foot or weakness of the hip and imbalance of the hip, this is going to start to put stress on the inside portion right here. So that constant opening like this stresses the medial portion, the MCL, the meniscus, and these muscles over time. So we're gonna be showing you some different things that you can do to stabilize your hips and also strengthen your hips so you don't have that dysfunction. Next, biggest thing you can implement right now is start to break up your quad with a foam roller. So there's tons of different types of foam rollers, but the big thing I want you to start with is doing this right above the kneecap and on the inside portion, which is called the VMO. So just in this position, I want you to continue to wear this so that you have a great idea of what it looks like, but starting above the kneecap and then starting to roll up towards your hip, just getting some gentle movement side to side, moving to different areas of the quad, and start to find a tight spot. When you get onto a tight spot, you're gonna apply some pressure and then do what I call the pin and stretch. So holding here and then starting to bend your leg, which stretches the quad, but you're applying pressure on the tight spot so it breaks up those tight muscle fibers. Go to a different portion, maybe on the inside where that VMO is, hold that, bend the leg, so you're lengthening and breaking up those tight muscles. Go to a different portion, bend the leg, and break that up as well. And over time, you'll start to really loosen the quads that are pulling onto the kneecap there. All right, now that we have a really good understanding of some of the main contributors to knee pain, I want to help you get an understanding of what you can look for as you are actually running so that you don't suffer from this constant knee pain. One of the first things we talked about is when your knee collapses inward. We call this valgus knee collapse. So as you're running, if your knee is doing that because of weak hips or imbalance of dysfunction of the foot, it's going to put a ton of stress onto that inside portion of your knee. So make sure as you're running, your knee continues to track over your foot rather than collapsing in like this. The other main thing I see is, again, that overstriding. So if people's foot is landing in front of their center of gravity, all of the ground reaction forces are coming straight up and directly into the knee. This causes tight quads over time, which pulls on that patellar tendon like we talked about. It compresses the medial meniscus and it puts a ton of stress on those joints. So instead, what you can do is make sure that you have a nice forward lean, and when your foot hits the ground, you should barely be able to see the front part of your toes, and make sure that your toes and your foot is directly under your hips so that that ground reaction force goes up through your entire body evenly. A good way to train this is with a simple forward lean. So just by standing here and then starting to lean forward, wherever your foot naturally falls, that body angle here is what you want to try and maintain as you're running. And again, that's going to equally distribute all the forces up throughout your entire body. So we talked about what you can look for as you're actually running. So now the big thing is, let's start to increase your current level of function. So we do that by first stretching, improving your function, and then strengthening. So the first thing I want to do is make sure that you have really open hips and loosen up the quads here. So what you can start to do is go into an extended lunge. So back toe up and back pointed towards your front foot. You can breathe space into the front side of your body here. You can roll your arms up if you want to create length. This is a really easy way just to create length on that whole front part of the hip. In this position with your tailbone tucked under, this will lengthen even more, and then I can drop my knee down to the ground. And right there, I start to feel the hip flexor, and I start to feel the tight quads as well. So just in this position with your tailbone tucked down or your pubic bone up, you're lengthening the front part. You can stick your hips out further if you would like to get even a deeper stretch. If you feel like this isn't stretching enough, you can get up near a wall. So you can actually put your knee up against some type of wall like this and stretch down, or you can even put your foot up onto a bench or your couch, cause a couch stretch, and really start to open up your hip and that quad again. So once we have good length on the front side here, we really want to start to help stabilize and strengthen the posterior chain as well as the hip stabilizers. One easy way, this is also really good for IT band, so if you want to see my IT band pain video, you can check that out. But a big way to start to strengthen the glute med, which is one of the main hip stabilizers, so your hip isn't collapsing down and then your knee collapsing in, is just doing some hip dips. So you can do this off a step, or you could do it just standing here, but it's allowing one hip to dip down and then squeezing the leg that is on the ground still to come back up. So you're going down and then up, down and up. If you do this 10 to 30 times, you'll really start to feel this hip stabilizer, the gluteus medius, start to strengthen. You could also do that with clam shells on the ground or side planks on the ground. But the next thing I want you to get into is really starting to strengthen the posterior chain. So I like to primarily do this with single leg deadlifts, but also really slow. So on one foot, sending your hips back. I'll go to the side so you can see. Hips back. As you keep that leg almost all the way straight, and then start to slowly reach all the way forwards as if you're reaching 2 to 3 feet in front of you, and then squeezing your butt, coming back up. Hips go all the way back. And as I do this, I'm making sure that my knee stays nice and stable. So this is creating knee stability while also strengthening the posterior chain, and then back up. If you do that 3 to 10 times, you'll really start to strengthen the glutes, to work with the hamstrings, to work with the calf, while also creating that knee stability. Going all the way down, squeezing, coming back up is a really good way to strengthen the back side of the body rather than having over dominant quads. Because if your quads are super tight, it's pulling on the front side, whereas what you want is a nice equal balance to protect the knee. So by strengthening the hamstrings, you're starting to bring things back into a nice equilibrium. Going onto the ground, a couple more things you can do to strengthen your hip stabilizers and the back side of the chain here is with doing something like clam shells or a side plank. So in this position, I could just raise my legs up, doing the Jane Fonda here, but doing some clam shells, you can do this with or without a band. So I could put a band over my knees here and start to open against some resistance. And doing that, again, you'll start to strengthen the glute med here, or you can go into a side plank. So legs extended, tummy stays tight, raising up, you're starting to strengthen this whole side part of your body to strengthen those stabilizers. If you want to make this even more difficult, you can start to do leg raises, so you're getting the downside and your upside of both hip stabilizers to get involved. And again, this is really helping to strengthen so your hips aren't dipping as you're going down. The next thing we want to do to strengthen the posterior chain is what I call an isometric extended bridge. So in this position, we've all seen bridges like this. Instead, that just focuses primarily on the glutes. I want to get the entire posterior chain. So if your legs are out closer to a 20-degree knee bend, you're going to squeeze your knees together, feeling the inside of your groin, dorsiflex the toes, so toes come up, squeeze your heels together, and then your heels back towards your butt. You'll feel your hamstrings and your calves and your glutes all engage. In this position, take huge breath in, create space. You can bring your hands up if you would like to create more tension in the lower back, but then big breath in, you're squeezing heels towards your butt, and then raising your butt 1 inch off the ground. And I feel this all in my glutes, low back, and hamstrings, again, to offset the chronic contracted nature of the quads so that you're strengthening the backside of your body as well. So those are really good stretches to start to open up the front part of your body. Strengthening exercises to strengthen your glute med, the hip stabilizers, as well as the backside of your body to help you prevent and overcome knee pain. So we talked about some simple stretching and also strengthening that you can do. And when I was doing the single leg deadlift, I talked about how the knee can collapse in. But I want you to start to think about retraining your body to have proper knee mechanics, because most knee pain doesn't happen because of something that's wrong with the knee. Usually happens because something's going on with the hip or their foot, and the knee just happens to be in the middle. So what I like to train is just a simple squat. So just without even thinking about it, as you squat down, notice what you notice in your body. Where do you start to feel some tension, tightness? It could be your mid-back, could be your upper back and shoulders, could be your hip, could be your ankle. These are all indicators of things you can improve on to help your knee function better. But also, I want you to start to look at your knees as you're squatting. So if you squat down and you see a knee start to collapse in like this, you're probably doing that repetitively as you're running as well. So instead, you can train good squat mechanics so that your knee is properly moving over your foot and under your hip. So as you squat down, your knees should slightly drive out over the fourth toe and then come back up. So just practicing really good, nice squat mechanics will help to ensure that you're strengthening good mechanics of the joints as well as the muscles as you're moving. A good way to do this also is using some type of step. And so as we talked about the single leg deadlift, wanting to make sure your knee wasn't doing anything all funky, you can do this on a step as well. And this is a strengthening exercise, but also I want you to just mostly be aware of what your knee is doing. So in this position, on a step, you can put your weight over onto your heel, start to come up, and then really slowly back down. So what I'm focusing on is making sure that my knee stays stable and not going inward or way outward as I'm stepping up. So I'm coming up and my knee is staying really nice and stable, and then really slow going back down. If your knee is going in or out, focus on that, control those muscles, make sure that they're moving properly, and you can train good function so that then equivalates to good running mechanics as you're on the trail. So there you have it, the answer to your question. Running does not cause knee pain. Running with weakness and imbalances and poor posture over time is what contributes to knee pain as a distance runner. And I gave you tons of things that you can start to implement right away as you're running, before you're running, after you're running, to improve your function, increase your mobility, and strengthen the muscles that stabilize your hips and knees to help you run longer, stronger, and more healthy. If you have any other questions or concerns about how I can help you be a healthier runner, please leave them below. Share this with a friend, and I'll see you on the trails. Wait, before you go, I want to say thank you again for watching this video, and I also want to invite you to the Vital Stride Community Facebook group where runners like you are asking running related questions, and I'm helping people overcome repetitive running injuries. I look forward to seeing you in the group.